Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a sci-fi action from 2017 titled Attraction. The film opens in Moscow, Russia, where a realist girl named Julia doesn't believe in the existence of anyone other than humans in the entire universe. Later that day in school, Julia finds out about the rare meteor shower to occur by the evening, so she returns home by hitching a ride from her boyfriend, Artyom, where her army colonel father, Valentin, puts a curfew on her and forbids her to see the meteor shower in a public gathering. Once Valentin leaves for duty, Julia breaks the sad news to Artyom, who encourages her to sneak out with him now that her father's gone. When Valentin boards the sea vessel to handle his operations, he and his team discover a spacecraft beyond their understanding heading in Moscow's direction due to the meteor shower, which changed its course. They are quick to assume that it's a NATO spy satellite trying to breach their premises, so they send combat pilots to strike a drone attack at it. On the other hand, Julia and Artyom join the public and witness the meteor shower. Julia's friend shows up and takes her to her building's rooftop. When Julia and Artyom start smooching, she gets grossed out and gives her apartment keys to them to continue their business in private. Back on the military side, the jets attack the spacecraft, which destroys the rings orbiting around it in anti-clockwise movement and causes the craft to crash. Julia's friend witnesses the spacecraft headed right in her direction at full speed. The ship wipes her out with a blink of an eye and destroys the building, due to which Julia almost slips out of the building straight from the bed, but Artyom holds her hand. The crashing spacecraft doesn't stop there and continues to damage resident buildings and kill hundreds of people. While the news reporters spread the word about the event out in the world, Valentin is ordered by the chief of police to head straight to the crash site to contain whatever they find there. A media guy also tags along with them and provides exaggerated insights to news channels. Artyom takes the unconscious Julia outside and hitches a ride from a cop. Valentin and his squad reach the crash site, where they come across a robot-like creature. The media guy tries welcoming the creature with too many words, but the creature inflicts pain on him without coming into physical contact. Later, Valentin is presented in front of the defense ministry, where the higher-ups feel threatened and plan to destroy the remaining ship. But Valentin suggests giving the extraterrestrial beings space and time to fix their ship and leave Earth without provoking them, since this is what the alien has communicated to him personally. Back on Julia's side, she regains consciousness in a hospital and becomes angry to find out her friend was wiped out during the attack. She also watches the news reporting of evacuating residents and putting up a fence within a 1-kilometer radius of the crashed ship. Julia joins Artyom and waits for her father to show up, who takes her back home. She gets disappointed when she finds out Valentin has brought over his mother to keep an eye on Julia during his duty hours. The next morning, Julia waits for the school bus outside and becomes depressed to see an airtight military truck showing up with all her classmates inside it. She joins them and gets to school, only to pick a fight with her teacher, who's excited upon humankind finally coming into contact with an extraterrestrial race for the first time. Julia throws a tantrum while protesting to kick the aliens out for the damage they've caused. She goes home and steals her father's gun, only to convince Artyom and his friends to tag along with her to cross the fence and do something about the aliens. Since the fence is heavily guarded by the military, Artyom takes the group to an abandoned treatment facility, from where they cross the fence without getting seen by the army. Artyom puts Julia in a random car for her safety and goes to the destroyed mart under Julia's friend's building. There, they find an object beyond their understanding and start messing with it. Julia sneaks out of the car and goes to her friend's apartment, where an alien crawls its way up. Julia panics and starts shooting at the alien, but she tips over and falls off the tall building. The alien grabs her hand and saves her. Julia stops panicking when the alien flashes its real face through his armor, which is similar to human form. Artyom had heard her screams earlier, so he runs upstairs with his bat and swings it in the alien's face, causing him to fall off the building and land straight in the mart. When the friends run to the mart, they only see the armor with the alien's blood on it, whereas Julia spots him covered in dust. The friends take the armor back to their garage. The army shows up just after their departure and confiscates the alien tech that the boys left behind. Meanwhile, the boys hang the armor in their garage like a trophy. When Julia goes home, she regrets not helping the injured alien, so she sneaks back to the mart and brings the alien back in her Jeep. She then brings along a kid named Google for help, since he's specializing in medicine in her school. Given the fact that their anatomy is similar to humans, Google suggests taking the alien to an actual hospital to treat him. Julia calls in a favor from her father's friend, who works at a hospital. Disguised as doctors, they rush the alien to the hospital's infirmary, where they check his blood type and find out he has type A blood. Julia realizes she has the same type and decides to donate her blood. Google passes out while trying to jab a needle in Julia's arm, so she extracts her blood and injects it in the alien's body. Later, Julia notices the scales on the alien's arm and tries to touch them, which awakens the alien momentarily and magically transfers his bracelet onto her wrist. She brings the alien home with Google and ties him up. Google assures taking care of the alien in full confidentiality and sends Julia back home, where she discovers during the shower what the bracelet actually does. It makes the water dance in directions. Julia moves her arm with the bracelet. Meanwhile, the army brings back the confiscated piece and discovers that it brings movements in water. When everyone in the defense ministry gathers for a meeting, the scientist brings to light what they found happens to be a missing piece from the alien's craft, and it has led them to find out that most of their ship is made up of water, which now needs a lot of water to fix itself. While the others refuse to let the aliens suck their land dry, Valentine suggests arranging water tanks for the aliens to avoid possible conflicts and return their stolen tech. But the vice president refuses to give away the alien tech since it's their only shot at studying the aliens. The next morning, Google shows up at Julia's door to tell her that the alien has woken up, who introduces himself as Hakon. In return, Julia tells him to dress up and leave. Hakon discovers a pot of water and excitedly washes his face with it. Julia kicks him out of her garage during curfew, which results in the cops arresting him. On the other hand, the boys try to cut Hakon's armor, but it's indestructible. One of them puts his arm inside the armor and discovers that he can control it with his body movements. However, things don't turn out to be good for him when the armor tries to sew his arm inside it by jabbing hundreds of microneedles in his arm. His friends help him get the arm out, but he gets injured and warns everyone for not seeing the actual threat the aliens pose to humans. His friends kick him out for acting out. Artyom decides to hand over the armor to the military, so he calls Valentine, but he's too busy with his duties now that the army has enforced martial law. Artyom and his friends personally go to talk to Valentine, but become devastated to see the army depriving people of land and water. When a fight ensues between the angry public and army, Artyom tries to break it off, but instead gets beaten up by the army and taken to Valentine, where Artyom changes his mind and says nonsensical stuff to Valentine, which lands him in the police station. There, Hakon is claimed to be an unidentified person when his fingerprints don't show up on the paper. Soon, Julia comes to bail Hakon, but Artyom sees her and starts cussing at her and Valentine. Hakon watches the confiscated piece on the news on his way out and asks Julia to help get it back since it's their ship's shield, which protects the shilk that runs their ship. Julia takes him to Valentine's base to steal his security pass by pretending to be pregnant. She holds him long enough for Hakon to use that pass to enter the lab in disguise and steal the shield from the shield. The scientists trigger an alarm when they realize they've been compromised, causing Valentine to send the two back home in an army vehicle. On the other hand, Artyom unites with his boys and decides to keep the armor to defend the people from the army. They go to their garage and prepare for a movement. He even calls Julia to apologize for earlier and asks her to join his movement, but she ignores him and takes Hakon home until midnight, so she can sneak through the fence and get Hakon back to his ship. As they connect over food and laugh around, Valentine finds out Hakon has stolen the shilk and comes back home. Julia escapes with Hakon and hides in Google's place for a while. In the evening, she takes Hakon to a concert, where the noise prompts him to show Julia a glimpse of his planet by touching her hands. When Julia keeps suspecting his kind can be a danger to humans, he reveals that the meteor shower intervened with their cloak and pushed them to Earth. Otherwise, they would have never made contact with humans. Julia becomes teary when she realizes Haakon will part ways after midnight. Soon, the time arrives, and Julia helps Haakon get through the fence and shares her first kiss. As he's making his way towards his ship, Artyom shows up with his gang, revealing to be all updated on Julia's love affair. Out of jealousy, he beats Haakon brutally and uses profanity with Julia. Soon, the friends find the glowing shilk in their backpack, so Julia reveals he's not a human. Artyom slaps Julia, which provokes Haakon to fight back for her. One of the friends takes out Julia's gun from her backpack and shoots Haakon, but instead his own friend gets shot. The army shows up simultaneously, so Artyom runs away with his friends. While the army captures Julia and Haakon, Artyom starts posting false rumors about the aliens killing his friend on social media. With his tactics, he gathers a large number of civilians and provokes them to fight for their rights by attacking the army near the fences. Artyom goes back to the garage while the public wreaks havoc. Valentin finds out about Haakon, but still stands by the vice president's command to take charge of the fight. Julia shouts at Valentin for damaging the ship in the first place and puts a gun over her head in order to flee with Haakon. Valentin enters the fight scene with his platoon and starts subduing the civilians rather than harming the aliens. Artyom synchronizes with the stolen armor and shows up to attack Julia. He ambushes their vehicle, due to which Julia faints momentarily. Haakon fights Artyom with his bare hands and loses badly. Before the fatal blow, Julia runs Artyom with her vehicle and runs out to kiss Haakon. Meanwhile, Valentin and his army surrender in front of the aliens. Artyom comes out of his armor and shoots Julia and Haakon. Thankfully, 2 aliens take them to their ship under Valentin's supervision and put them in healing pods containing water. There, the armors open themselves, which turn out to be empty. The ship, which has a voice of its own, reveals to Valentin that Haakon was the only person originally sent to silently observe Earth for its violent and aggressive nature in Cloak, which made them prohibit themselves from ever making contact with Earth. But the meteor shower sabotaged his entire mission. However, the ship is willing to reevaluate its statement after analyzing Julia and Haakon's willingness to sacrifice themselves for one another. The film ends with Julia waking up because of Haakon's sacrifice. Everything goes back to normal when the ship takes off and leaves Earth. I hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching and see you next time.